Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. 6 years ago in 2016, three things happened in the PC world. AMD was stuck with the dreadful FX line of CPUs, Intel released the utterly boring i7-7700K refresh of a refresh of a refresh CPU, and we started a YouTube channel. Okay, in fairness, that last item mattered way more to us than to most people. But if you're watching this video, then perhaps it does matter, because today we're going to test the new 13th generation of core CPUs from Intel, and holy actual smokes, Batman, these are not your father's 4-core CPUs, and this is not your father's Intel. Today's video is brought to you by eWin Racing, the best source for gaming chairs and desks for those long gaming sessions. We have a playlist of our eWin chair and desk videos linked in the video description below. Save 30% off of everything using the discount code TechDeals. More details at the end of the video. The i5-13600K is a 14-core, 20-thread CPU that runs at 5 GHz stock out of the box while consuming under 100 watts of power and running at under 60 degrees on a tower cooler while gaming. To top it off, it costs just $300. It installs on a $150 Z690 motherboard using inexpensive DDR4 RAM, and spoiler alert, it's faster than the 12th generation Alder Lake. Surprise! This is going to be a long video, so please sit back and relax, grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's get into it. First, I just want to repeat something because it sounds crazy to even say this out loud. The $300 i5 CPU from Intel now has 14 cores and it runs at 5 GHz stock out of the box. When we started our YouTube channel in 2016, the i5-6600K was 4 cores and it ran at 3.6 GHz. This video will skip the deep dive into the CPUs, platforms, differences, etc., and instead focus on the benchmarks. The i5, the i7, and the i9 CPUs will each get their own videos, just like Zen 4 did, and then a fourth video will be made with a deep dive comparison of the different chipsets, the CPUs, the cores, the different RAM support, and everything else you want to know about all of them. The shortest recap ever is the 13th gen uses the LGA 1700 socket on 600 and 700 series motherboards from Intel. You can use the Z690 for these CPUs, and you should do so for cost reasons. There's no difference worth caring about between the 600 and 700 series motherboards. DDR4 and DDR5 RAM are both supported, but not at the same time. Buy a DDR4 board for i5 or i7 CPUs, buy a DDR5 board for i9. These are hybrid CPUs featuring performance and efficiency cores. The P cores have hyperthreading, while the E cores do not. Windows 11 is effectively required for 12th and 13th gen CPUs due to the new process scheduler for the hybrid cores. We have 3 different test machines being used to benchmark these CPUs, as they are on different sockets. Rather than read out a ton of numbers for the next 5 minutes, we're just going to put them all on screen right here. Feel free to pause the video to read them if you'd like. The short version is we have balanced each test machine to be as fair and reasonable to each CPU as possible. First, we'll start off with some productivity tests to look at the single-threaded and multi-threaded performance of each CPU. CPUZ Bench provides a simple and easy way to test your PC to make sure it's running as it should. The big single-core performance difference here is between the 5600X and the 13600K. The new CPU is a whopping 38% faster. That is not a minor difference, and you will see that play out later in the game tests. When compared to the 7600X, the 13600K still wins, however not by nearly as much. 9% faster is indeed a win, and it is outside the margin testing of error. However, any difference less than 10% is extremely minor, all things considered. 9% might not be huge, but 58% sure is. The 13600K demolishes the 7600X due to its much higher core count. I see many comments online from people who say E-cores aren't real cores. These people are foolish and silly. E-cores are not P-cores, but they are very much real cores, and from an energy consumption point of view, they're actually way better than P-cores. Compared to the last gen Intel CPU released only 1 year ago, the 13600K is 35% faster than the 12600K, an impressive year-over-year gain not often seen since the 1990s. Finally, if you want to talk impressive, how about the 99% performance jump from the 2020 Ryzen 5 5600X to the 2022 i5-13600K? 4,952 points versus 9,866 points. That is simply stunning. Keep in mind the 5600X launched for $300 just 2 years ago, the same price as the 13600K is launching for today, and you get double the performance. When is the last time CPU performance at the same price doubled in just 2 years? It has been a long time, long enough that I'd have to sit down and think about it for longer than a hot minute to find that one. Off the top of my head, without looking up actual numbers, it may very well be 2006's Core 2 Duo E6600 to 2008's Core i7-920. But regardless, it's been a while. Cinebench R23 is more or less a 20-minute version of CPUZ. It is based on a real workload, however, it tends to have almost perfect core and thread scaling. The story is effectively a repeat of CPUZ, so I won't repeat it all here. 7-Zip is a file compression program that has a lovely built-in benchmark. Note that if you wish to try this yourself on your own computer, make sure that you're on the same version we're using, 22, because the benchmark does change between versions. AMD usually dominates in these tests, even with fewer cores. Team Red just does really well here. The 6-core 7600K is actually faster than the 10-core previous generation 12600K. However, the improvements to both core count and clock speed on the 13600K just cannot be denied. It beats the 7600X by a solid 24%. That is a huge showing in an AMD-favored benchmark. Just as impressive, the 13600K beats last year's 12600K by 35%. Again, a very impressive 1-year improvement that we have not seen for a long time. Blender is a great tool for testing 3D rendering performance on both CPUs and GPUs. I said in our Ryzen 5 7600X review that if you are remotely interested in Blender performance, you should not be looking at a Ryzen 5 CPU. Run, don't walk, and buy a Ryzen 9 7950X. That advice still holds true despite these results. The 13600K crushes the 7600X by a whopping 42%. However, the 7950X then crushes the 13600K by a further 81%, rendering the win rather moot. Finally, we have V-Ray, a 3D rendering plugin used by the biggest media companies in the world. Seen Star Wars Rogue One, Captain America Civil War, V-Ray was used to render the 3D effects in those movies. The story here is the same as Blender. If 3D rendering and non-gaming productivity workloads are your thing, the Ryzen 9 7950X is your new best friend. The 7950X beats the 13600K by 85% here. I think that says all that needs to be said. In the Zen 4 reviews, I said that the E-cores are great for multitasking, but they're really not as good at multi-threading, at least not in real workloads. That was true for the 12th generation Alder Lake hybrid CPUs, however it appears to have shifted with the new 13th gen Raptor Lake CPUs. A combination of faster clock speeds, higher core counts, and perhaps further optimizations to Intel's thread director have improved the multi-threading performance of Intel's hybrid CPUs, making them competitive. Having said that, allow me to give you a minor spoiler from our i9 13900K review. The Ryzen 9 7950X with 16 cores is still faster than the 13900K with 24 cores in Blender and V-Ray. For pure productivity workloads, 16 E-cores on the 13900K are not yet enough to overcome the 8 P-core advantage on the 7950X, but they are really close. When the 14th gen Meteor Lake launches next year with 24 E-cores, it will take that crown from AMD unless AMD does something impressive. Now it's time for some gaming tests. If you have watched our Zen 4 reviews, you know the format and order to expect. Before we actually get to the games, however, I think 3 important points need to be said. First, all of these CPUs will play games just fine at highly playable frame rates. This is not a video meant to tell you that one of these will somehow not play games today. Far from it. Second, an important question to ask is, how much reserve performance does each CPU have, and what sort of multitasking can be done on each while gaming? It is important to remember that we are running these tests on completely clean test machines. Windows is freshly installed, nothing is running in the background, the task tray is clear, no updates are running, etc. Put a dozen things in the task tray, have Windows updates enabled, be watching a YouTube video or listening to music, have Discord voice chat open, and you'll find your CPU load is higher than what you see here. Taking that a step further, if you want to live stream or record your gameplay, that will put further load on your system as well. So keep that in mind when watching the CPU usage numbers for each game. Third, most of the games tested came out in 2020 or 2021. We are testing while looking backwards at games that already exist, that launched for prior generations of hardware. Next year, in 2023 and further ahead in 2024, new games will come out that will be even more demanding. That is kind of how it works. If you see a CPU running a game today just fine, but it's using all the cores to do it, you may find it has very little future looking ahead. Remember that in general, 50% usage on a CPU is all the cores. Everything else is hyperthreading, or SMT in AMD's case. Or that was traditionally the case when everything was just P-cores and hyperthreading. Today, with hybrid CPUs, it's a bit more complex. We will cover that in a standalone video in more detail. Our first game is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a very demanding title that has been stuck at about 135 frames per second on every CPU to date. This has been true for Zen 3, Zen 4, and 12th generation Alder Lake, even the 12900K and the Ryzen 9 7950X. Imagine our surprise when the 13600K blew right past this with 165 frames per second average and 119 in the 1% low. A stunning performance jump over both 12th gen and Zen 4. The 13600K is 20% faster than the 7600X. That's impressive for a CPU 2 process generations behind. Battlefield 2042 is new to our benchmark suite. Several of you have requested this be added, so here it is. Zen 4 and both Intel CPUs are effectively tied in performance. The variance here is due to live gameplay being tested on live servers. Zen 3 is slower, but not by enough to be worth calling out. I wouldn't call it slow, rather I'd just say it doesn't provide the same levels of 1% low numbers that competitive gamers want to see, and that for casual players, it would be absolutely just fine. This brings me to a point that needs to be discussed more often with reviews: margin of testing error and live gameplay variance versus built-in benchmarks. On built-in benchmarks, any difference of 5% or less is really a tie, as you can run most tests a dozen times and you get slightly different results each time. On live gameplay, any difference of 10% or less is also a tie due to the natural variance of playing real games with real people on real servers. We consider this far more realistic testing for CPUs, as it provides a real load for the CPU versus just using replay files that are effectively just watching a movie, stressing only the graphics card at that point. Call of Duty is perhaps the most popular online first-person shooter game franchise of all time, and a terribly difficult one to test in live gameplay. Here are 4 of the battles we played on a chart. Neither are the fastest or slowest results we tested. Rather, this is a representative, reasonable middle ground you can expect most of the time using these CPUs. The 13600K and the 7600X are effectively tied here, with the older CPUs just a little bit further behind. Cyberpunk 2077 has seen a new lease on life with recent patches and news of a major expansion coming in 2023. Further development of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions were dropped to allow CD Projekt Red to focus on the technology of the future. you can see why AMD wanted to get Zen 4 out before Raptor Lake launched. Zen 4 is very competitive with 12th generation from Intel, but it simply does not keep up with the 13th generation. The i5-13600K is 17% faster than the 7600X. That is an impressive improvement given the 12th gen was tied with the 7600X. As a side note, the 13600K is 67% faster in the 1% low versus the 5600X from just 2 years ago. That is a huge improvement in just 2 years. F1 2022 is new to our benchmark suite, with the 2020 version finally being retired. Still very easy to run, a good test for high frame rates and making sure the 1% lows are solid. When we reviewed the 7600X, we noted that the 12600K simply could not keep up. We ran and reran that test across multiple days to double and triple check our numbers. It felt out of place, but there it was. Intel appears to have fixed whatever caused that problem, because not only does the 13th gen run faster than the 7600X, it is a whopping 31% faster than the 12600K. That is a huge improvement. Far Cry 6 is also new to our benchmark suite, finally having retired Far Cry New Dawn. 171 frames per second average is an impressive result. However, look at the 1% lows. The 13600K scores 134 frames per second, which is almost equal to the 138 frame per second average of the 12600K. In just 1 year, the average turned into the 1% low. That's crazy. Even more shocking is the gain over the 5600X. The 13600K is 57% faster in the average. However, ponder this thought for a second. The 13600K's 0.1% low is equal to the 5600X average. Note, I didn't say 1% low, I said 0.1% low. That means that 99.9% of the frame times on the 13600K are faster than 50% of the frame times on the 5600X. This is the sort of performance improvement year over year that we used to get in the good old days. Nice to see such huge performance jumps again. Guardians of the Galaxy is another new game to our tests, quite demanding and beautiful with all the ultra ray tracing details turned on. We will test it that way for the new GPUs, but here of course we have 1080p high testing for CPUs. The 13600K beats the 7600X by 37%. As impressive as that is, the 1% lows are a whopping 59% faster on the 13600K. In Texas, this is what we call an old-fashioned butt-whooping. Hitman 3 is another new addition to our testing, and this one is a whopper of a demanding game. It will use everything you've got to provide fast frame rates and smooth gameplay. The frame times are smoother on Intel, which is not reflected in the 1% or 0.1% lows on the chart, but if you watch the actual recording, you can see the difference. The 7600X is using up to 70% of the CPU in front of the fireplace, which puts it deeply into hyperthreading, really SMT, but whatever, and leaving absolutely nothing left for anything else on your PC. The 13600K is under 50% usage with plenty of reserve performance to spare. 70% is all the cores being used because of the hybrid architecture. Again, we'll discuss that in a future video. However, it has cores to spare, and it's faster than the 7600X to boot. The main number worth actually noting here is the 43% jump in performance the 13600K provides over the 5600X, another impressive improvement in just 2 years. Spider-Man Remastered is another new game to our test suite. This is another game that will use almost everything that you can throw at it. The 7600X and the 13600K are effectively tied here. Both will run this game very well. Once again, the main difference is CPU usage. The 13600K has something left in reserve, the 7600X does not. Also, once again, the newer CPUs leave the 5600X in the dust with a 38% performance gain via the 13600K over the 5600X. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, say that 10 times fast, replaces Borderlands 3 in our test suite, and we're mostly graphics card bottlenecked here, even at 1080p, even at high detail, even on a 3090 Ti. Crazy, isn't it? The average and 1% lows are almost exactly the same. The small variance on the 0.1% lows is due to run-to-run differences. We run these multiple times, it's very hard to weed those out, so don't stress at the differences too much here. Before we go to the 10-game average chart, I want to provide some recommendations first. If you haven't figured it out by now, surprise, I think the 13600K is an easy choice over the 7600X. They cost about the same for the CPU itself. The 13600K installs into good motherboards that cost half the price of motherboards for the 7600X. You can use DDR4 that costs half the price and is faster in all respects. If the 13600K were just a 6-core CPU, it would still be worth considering for its higher gaming performance. But the 7600X would be a strong contender for future possible upgrades. It, after all, does have a Zen 5 future and possibly a Zen 6 future in front of it, whereas 13600K does not. It's end of the road for LGA 1700. However, it isn't just a 6-core CPU. It's a 6-core CPU with an 8-core low-power CPU glued on for free. Those extra cores mean that you won't need an upgrade in a year or two when the core wall hits your 6-core CPU hard. You can just keep the 13600K until 2025 or 2026 and build a new PC then. The whole upgrade argument makes total sense if you can buy a cheap Ryzen 5 now, install it on a modest motherboard, install some cheap RAM, and then buy next generation Ryzen. But there is nothing whatsoever cheap about the AM5 platform today. For super premium users, a Ryzen 9 7950X is a solid choice, but that's due to the high platform costs. Speaking of super premium users, the i9-13900K with 24 cores exists. Watch our video on that when it comes out. It will be linked in the video description below. The i7-13700K with 16 cores exists. However, I'm of the opinion that you either go budget with the 14-core i5 or you go super premium with the 24-core i9. The middle just costs more for a minor improvement. The Ryzen 9 7900X falls apart for the same reason. You're okay with $550 for just your CPU, but $700 scares you off? Sadly, there is no reasonable Zen 4 cheap option, so the 13600K wins here by knockout. The i5-13600K easily wins our Editor's Choice Award for being a true tech deal. We are happy to recommend it without reservation to the middle 80% of PC builders who want really great performance and a really nice machine without having to go super premium. If you plan to use an RTX 3080 or 6800 XT, or you plan to upgrade to an RTX 4070 or an RX 7800 XT when those come out, then the i5-13600K is your new best friend. RTX 4090 buyers should run, not walk, straight to the i9-13900K. Do not pass go, do not save $200. It is worth it for that level of PC build. It's just not right for everyone given how expensive that PC becomes overall. Here is the 10-game average chart showing all 10 games tested. The i5-13600K wins this outright, having higher average, higher 1% lows, and higher 0.1% lows overall versus the 7600X. The difference isn't dramatic. It's 8% faster in the average. However, this isn't really about frame rates. I would encourage you all to rewatch the sections with recorded footage. It's the CPU usage number that really counts. The lower the percentage, the more reserve power each CPU has for multitasking or future games coming out over the next few years. If you would like a firm, specific recommendation on the foundation of a PC build, I personally would order the i5-13600KF for $309, the Gigabyte Aorus Elite AX DDR4 board for $199, this 32GB DDR4 3600 RAM kit for $85, and either a Scythe Fuma 2 air cooler or a Cooler Master 280mm liquid cooler for around $70. Your choice. The total cost of $670 buys you a premium platform. It'll give you a great experience that should easily last 3 to 4 years for upcoming games while providing superior performance for today's games. Links to all of this will be in the video description below. Thank you all so much for watching to the very end. 2 gold stars for all of you still here. Like, comment, subscribe, and do all the things. You can follow me on Twitter down below in the video description. Links to Amazon, Newegg, eBay, and now B&H Photo as well are included in the video description below. Those are affiliate links. They support the channel at no extra cost to you. And if you use those, we get a small commission, and it helps us continue bringing you awesome content like this. I really have to say, the 13600K was impressive. All the scripted comments and charts and numbers aside, holy smokes. An i5, 14 cores, $300, beats Zen 4 in basically everything. The few corner cases where maybe this would be a tiny bit faster are few and far between. This thing is awesome. Temperatures are fine, power consumption is fine. It's a drop-in, if you have an existing 12600K, some of the performance jumps were 30% over a 12600K. If you have a 12600K, sell your CPU for $200 on eBay, buy this for $300, boom, up to 30% more performance for a $100 upgrade cost. That's a deal. Plus you have the extra reserve performance of the additional cores for the future. That's a no-brainer. I love this thing. Intel really hit this out of the park. Now, 3D chips are coming next year from AMD. We will test those. We did not test the 5800X 3D, but when the new ones come, we will test those, and they may very well take the performance crown back from Intel, and if so, more power to AMD. The beneficiary here is us. The people who win is us. So whether you buy AMD or whether you buy Intel, we all win, and winning is kind of all of the battle when it comes to spending your money on a computer.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
eWin Racing has a wide selection of chairs to fit all shapes and sizes of gamers, ranging from petite to cuddly. They have something for every type of gamer. Not just sizes, but colors and material options as well, including red, blue, purple, pink, orange, and more, plus cloth and leather choices. We have over half a dozen chair and desk videos in a playlist down in the video description below. We also have a very special offer just for Tech Deals viewers. Save 30% off of everything using discount code TechDeals using our link in the video description. We have used eWin gaming chairs for 3 years in our office, sitting on them for up to 8-hour marathon live streams. They are very comfortable, and we are happy to work with eWin to bring you this special discount and recommend eWin for all of your gaming chair and desk needs. Rather than read out a ton of numbers for the next 5 minutes, we're just going to put them all on screen right here. Feel free to pause the video if you want to read them. If you want to read them, the big single core performance difference here is between. I feel like I have cotton balls in my throat. Is that your phone?
Yes.
And it's making noise because?
It does that?
And should it be doing that?
Yeah.
No.
It doesn't. It would be broken.
But it needs to not do that. Did you mute it?
Yeah.
Okay. We're filming a video. Part 8, take 1.
Those people are silly.
58% faster. They both have 6B cores, so those E cores must magically be doing nothing there, huh? That advice still holds true here despite these results. The 12. Having said that, allow me to give you a minor spoiler review from our i9-13900K.
13900K.
Shut up. When 13th Gen Meteor Lake launches with 24 E-cores...
I thought you said when 13th Gen Meteor Lake launches.
I thought I said 14th Gen. Did I say 13th Gen? Editing videos would be more beneficial than benchmarking. We'll have to get mini deals in Princess Peach to edit videos so that you can... to benchmark so you can edit videos. Or I'll get them to edit videos. That way you can benchmark for the rest of your life.
And then get paid the big bucks.
Sure. I will have a large dollar bill printed at 50 times normal size for you. That'll be the big bucks. Or the big buck.
But it's not even plural.
I'll have 2 of them made.
Woohoo!